And then when we have an understanding of our listeners, our episodes get better. You're forming relationships with these listeners on social media, and when they attend stuff, they're more bought into what you're doing because you're adding value to them. Podcast Growth Nation, welcome back to another special episode of Podcast Growth University, where we talk all things podcasting all the time. I hope you enjoyed the latest episode. It was episode number 17. Don't rely on your guests to grow your show for you. Today, for episode number 18, why you should give stuff away for free. I might be in the minority of people when it comes to this and my belief and understanding of this, but I think this is one of the most valuable things you can do as a podcaster, especially if we're talking about coaching, especially if we're talking about the beginning of the journey for you. So one of the questions I get asked most often when I go on other shows is, how did you monetize your podcast? And that's a great question. I love that question. It's very valuable. And at the end of the day, that's what most people are looking for. And this is what I say. I always use this example and I use the same story because I think for most people, this is how it should start. I went to Alan one day. Alan is my business partner, the co-host, the co-founder, the CEO of Next Level University. And I said, hey, I love this podcast thing, but I have to start making money. I'm in credit card debt. I'm running out of credit. My limit's almost too high now. I've almost maxed out all of my credit cards. I don't have any money coming in. I got to figure out a way to make money. So what Alan and I did is we started coaching for free. And this is what we did. I sent a message to somebody who I knew was a listener of the show. So at this point, this person had already self-identified, reached out to us, or shared a clip or something like that. And I had a conversation with this person. I had a quote unquote relationship going on with this person where I knew they were a listener and I was trying to add value into their life. So I messaged this person and I said, hey, are you interested in doing some free coaching? I've never coached before. I don't know what I'm doing really. I want to see if it's something I enjoy. I know you're a listener of the podcast. I think it would be valuable for you. Is that something you're interested in? Completely free, no strings attached. I just want to add value. And this person said, yeah, that's something that's aligned for me. Let's do it. So I jumped on the phone with this person. This was before Zoom. I think we were using FaceTime back then maybe. But yeah, I don't think we were even using Zoom. This was probably 19 maybe. And we had conversations every week where I would coach this person. And I coached this person every week for probably, maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. And at that point, over those 6 to 8 weeks, I had started coaching, I think 3 or 4 other people for free. And when my calendar got filled, this is what I did. I sent a message to each of these people and said, hey, I love doing this. I want to keep coaching you. Unfortunately, the demand on my time is higher. What do you think of $50 a call, or $50 an hour, or $50 a session, or $50 a week if you want to do one session a week? Do you think that's fair? And every single one of the clients I was working with said yes. And I think I had 4 or 5 clients at that time. So I went from making $0 a week through the podcast to making, just say 5 clients times 5, so $250 a week. So that's $1,000 a month. And for many people, that might be where you want to stop. You just want this to be a hobby that pays for itself. Cool. You're off to the races, right? You're off to the races. For me, that was very much the beginning, and it proved to me that you can actually make money with a podcast. But after that, the prices continued to increase as demand increased. So it was $50 a call, then it went to $75 a call, then it went to $100 a call, $125, $150 a call. And eventually I switched over from doing peak performance, mindset, habits, that sort of coaching to particularly just podcast coaching. That's my jam now. That's really all I do, because I realized that I could really only do one at a high level if I'm splitting time between 2 clientele and just there's too much going on that way. So I have focused on podcast coaching. But if you're out there, this is an option for you. And I think what happens for a lot of people, especially when we're talking about money and we're talking about monetizing, this is the most common thing I see for people. They are far more worried about supply than they are demand. So what do I mean by that? I tell people all the time, I want you to start talking about doing free calls as the midtro or as the outro or just as a conversation piece on your podcast. And the first pushback I get usually is, well, I don't want to do it for free. My time is more valuable than that. I completely understand. Okay. The second pushback I get is I'm afraid too many people are going to book free calls and I'll be overwhelmed. And the thing I always tell people is it's going to be way less than you think. It's going to be way less than you think because the conversion rate is it's just not as high as most people think. To the first point, yeah, your time might be more valuable, but the value of your time is contextual depending on who is booking the time. You might be the most valuable human in the world, but if you don't get in front of the right people and show them your value, they're not going to pay you. Think of it this way. Why should you give stuff away for free? Have you ever gone to the grocery store? Actually, even a better analogy. My wife and I signed up for HBO Plus or something, I don't know, a couple months ago. And it was a free 7-day trial. And we were going to watch Chernobyl. It's a documentary on HBO about the Chernobyl reactor and all that tragedy that happened. And we started watching it. And then I think we stopped watching it. But we had a 7-day free trial. So at the end of the 7 days, we had already found other stuff on HBO Go. I didn't want to cancel it. They gave us 7 days for free, and then I kept it. So even if somebody takes the 7 days and they keep it for a month, they're making money on that. If you go to the grocery store and somebody comes up to you and says, hey, do you want to try this cracker? Do you want to try this cheese? Do you want to try this drink? They're quite literally giving you an opportunity to get value from the product, so you might purchase it. That's why you should give stuff away for free. You should let people test drive your products and your services long before you charge them, or at least give them an understanding of what it's going to be like to work with you. So I think I have 5 ways that I think all of us could use the deeper understanding of to help us really lock this in. I think a lot of us have this negative connotation with my time is valuable. I don't want to waste it. I don't want to do stuff for free. I shouldn't do free calls. It devalues me and all that. I think a lot of that is ego more than anything. Number one, and I understand this too. I know I'm talking a lot about coaching in this. I mean, yeah, you could definitely give away free products, free merchandise, that sort of thing too, free tickets to events. You could do all that. Honestly, the way that the vast majority of podcasts, the ones aren't the best of the best of the best of the best, which the vast majority of us will never get to, they're going to make their money through coaching. They're going to make their money through one-on-one interactions. It's going to be coaching one-on-one. It's going to be consulting, courses. That's another way, but it's usually not going to be sponsorships, affiliate marketing, ads. That's not how most people are going to make a fair amount of money in the podcast industry. So I understand that I am focused on coaching here, but from what I've studied, from what we've done and all the clients I've worked with, that is the best bang for your buck when it comes to making money from your podcast, especially if you're in the problem-solving industry, whatever that means to you. Number one, when you give stuff away for free, it helps you identify listeners and it helps you learn a ton about them. So imagine this. In the very beginning of our podcast, we got this thing that we used to call, I think it was monthly meetups or monthly masterminds or something like that, right? The name has changed, it's evolved, and it's been rebranded a couple times. But this was the thought. We are going to do, every single week, we're going to do a live podcast. So it started on Zoom, where we didn't record it. Then it went to, I think it went to Zoom, and then we did record it, and now we do it on StreamYard, and we stream into our private Facebook group. It gets repurposed as an episode and a Q&A. It's always free. That started off as a free behind-the-scenes meetup with Alan and I. Free. Do you know what that really helped us do? That helped us understand, oh, I didn't realize that person listened. I didn't even know who that human was before they showed up to the Zoom room. Okay, cool. It gave us an understanding of our listeners. And then when we have an understanding of our listeners, our episodes get better. You're forming relationships with these listeners on social media, and when they attend stuff, they're more bought into what you're doing because you're adding value to them. And when you're looking for a potential client, you have a list of people that you could reach out to and say, hey, have you ever been interested in coaching, even if it's free? So it helps you identify listeners. The interesting thing about the podcast industry currently, with the statistics and everything else that they have going on, is you don't really have a great opportunity to understand who's listening to your show. Yeah, you can say, somebody in Los Angeles listened to this, or somebody in Korea listened to this episode. That's good, but you don't know who it is. And it's very, very hard to find that information. So point number one, it helps you identify your listeners and you can learn a ton about them.
Hey, I wanted to give my experience working with Kevin and the rest of the Next Level University team. It has been such a seamless relationship. He is so easy to work with, Kevin, and he gives you all the information you need, but doesn't overwhelm you. He's also meets you where you're at. So, if whatever you want to do, he'll make it work. And it's just, there's no stress, there's no drama. And everybody else that I've worked with has been patient with me because I am not technologically savvy. So they've been helpful and patient and just encouraging, and it's just been a fantastic experience. I highly, highly recommend working with them.
Number two, and this is such a valuable understanding to have, it's going to give you a realistic understanding of your conversion rate. All I mean by conversion rate is when you are promoting something, how many people go from the podcast to the thing. Okay? I've used this story before. We have a client who is big on social media, and this person at the time, I think they had 150,000 followers. And they were doing a webinar, and it was $70 a ticket. And this person ended up getting 400 people to come. So 400 people times 70, this person made $28,000 in 1 hour of their time. Again, they've been building this business for many years, but just for the sake of the story, 400 people came, $70 an hour, $28,000. But in the grand scheme of things, there's 150,000 followers and 400 people came. Those aren't good numbers, right? That the conversion rate isn't super high. So that's just the understanding that I want us to have is you might think to yourself, oh, this is going to be easy. Once I have a coaching program, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. It's probably not going to be as easy as you think. The second understanding with this is, well, if I'm offering free calls, I'm going to get bombarded with free calls. It's going to be way less than you think. And honestly, that's a good problem to have because you have to connect the fact that if you're doing free calls and you're adding value, that is potential money in the future. So number two, it gives you a realistic understanding of what your conversion rate is. And think of it this way. If your conversion rate is low on free, it most likely will be low on paid too. It'll probably be lower than the free, right? That's kind of the way it works. All right, number three, it helps you deepen the relationship. We live in a very interesting time in social media land where you do not get anything for free. Everybody is messaging me on LinkedIn saying, hey, let me do this, let me do this, let me do this. I'm getting sold to constantly on Facebook through the ads. I'm getting sold to constantly on Instagram, so much so where they put in a spam folder where messages that are probably spam go. There's a reason. There's a reason because there's a lot of people out there that are messaging you, not trying to add value and not focusing on deepening the relationship. You showing up on a free call, you showing up once a week for a free Q&A, you doing a monthly meetup where you go deep on a topic that you know your listeners would find value in. You doing those things is super valuable because it helps you deepen the relationship. And you have to understand this. If somebody listens to your podcast, they follow you on social media, they attend your live podcast, they attend your monthly meetups, what are the odds that when they're ready to work with a coach or buy a course or go to a retreat or whatever it may be, that they're going to do it with you? It's pretty high because they're already in your business and you're adding value consistently. So number three, it helps deepen the relationship. At the end of the day, that really is the name of the game, honestly. Number four, you actually get good at coaching if that's the route that you're taking. I know a lot of people have imposter syndrome when it comes to coaching. I was on the phone with somebody the other day, on Zoom with somebody the other day, and I said, between you and I believe the reason that you're going to get a coaching certification is because you think that'll get rid of the imposter syndrome and that'll actually give you permission to coach. I would literally just start jumping on the Zoom machine with your listeners for free because it's going to give you a good understanding of what coaching is actually like. A lot of us want to charge $150 or $250 for an hour of our time. And in the beginning, and I mean this with all the love in the world, you might not be worth that. If you can't add at least that amount of value to somebody's life, you're not worth that. So you have to make sure that you're getting the reps in, you're understanding the audience, you know how to coach, you know where the conversation's going to go, you know the problems that your listeners and your target audience are dealing with. One of the best ways to do that is to be on the phone with them for free. Phone, anytime I say phone, just assume I mean Zoom, unless you want to do phone calls. I like doing Zoom because I think there's a personal aspect of seeing somebody face to face. You can see the emotions, you can see the body language. It just helps you understand somebody at a deeper level. So you actually get good at coaching and you get a deeper understanding of what it's like being on with somebody and having a conversation. I can assure you in the beginning, for me, it was very weird. It was very weird for me to jump on FaceTime with somebody who I had never met, break ice, and then talk about life. That was a challenge, but doing the free calls really helped me. And I can tell you this, between our community and then podcasters, I have probably done maybe 200 free calls at this point. And that's not an exaggeration. I've done a lot of free calls because it's something I really believe in. And at the end of the day, I'm adding value. Understand this. The point of a podcast, the point of a business, it's not to make money. It's to add value, because when you add value, there often is an exchange of money. So if you're focused on adding more value and then having monetizable places where you can add value in exchange for funds, that's the best way to win long term. And you have to add value, but you have to be talking to your audience to know what they need, to know how you can help them, their problems, to make sure you're of value and you can deliver that to them. And then this is one that I think probably gets overlooked even by me. The fifth one is you can use the stories that you're learning about your audience on the podcast. Now, obviously, do it anonymously. Don't use anybody's full name or anything like that. But odds are, if you do a call with somebody and you realize, wow, I didn't understand that was something that my audience was going through. That's something I know very well. I can talk about that. That's how you open up your episode. I was on Zoom the other day with one of the amazing members of the community, and boom, you're off to the races. What that's going to do, number one, people are going to feel like you understand them at a deeper level because you're actually doing the work. Number two, it might open up the door for people to reach out to you and say, oh, okay, there's other people doing these free calls. Maybe I should do it too. Let me see what the hype is all about. Because it's a little bit of extra social proof. Other people are doing it. So if your audience hears that, they might say, you know what? Okay, there are other people doing it. I'll do it too. It's just like, if you've ever been to like an outdoor festival where there's a bunch of food trucks, what food truck are you going to go to? Are you going to go to the one that there's nobody at, or are you going to go to the one where there's a bustling line? I mean, I guess it depends on how hungry you are, but you're going to go where you know the food is good. And that's based on the fact that everybody else is already there. So it's just a little bit of social proof that helps people believe, okay, well, other people are doing this. It must be valuable. And then I would say this too. This is the last thing I would say. Make sure when you do this, you really, really instill the belief that this is free and there's no strings attached. I think that's a very, very important understanding, because I've done free calls. I've been on the other side of free calls where the second I do it, I realize, oh, I'm about to get sold to. That happens. Make sure that that's not what you're doing. Don't sell. Don't sell in the call. That's not the goal. The goal is to add value. Now, sometimes you'll add enough value and somebody say, hey, what does it take to work with you? And then you can go into it and you can say, well, this is what I offer. This is how much it is. Or you can always say at the end, hey, I whiteboarded a bunch of stuff here and I'm going to send you the notes, and I'll also send you my packages just so you have an idea of what we do. No pressure. If it's aligned, let's do it. That's a great way to leave the relationship positive by adding value, but not putting pressure on somebody and not being salesy and not making them feel like they were sold to. I think that if you can really, really flip your understanding and flip the relationship you have with free, I think you'll be in a better place. Because I can tell you, I had a client who came to me, and I've done this with many clients, but this specific one, she came to me and said, hey, I think I'm ready to start making money. What should I do? And I said, I want you to start talking about free coaching on the podcast. And she had a very engaged community. And I think she had 3 clients that she coached for free. At the end of a month or 2 months, she said, I can't do this for free anymore. And I think she was charging one $75 a call. The other one might have been on like a monthly thing, but she went from making $0 with her podcast to probably $300 or $400 a month. And it's because she did free calls and they ended up converting to paid calls because she was already adding value. I think that's probably the best use of your time, especially if you're early on, because it's going to check a bunch of boxes. You're going to learn about your audience. There's a easy potential to money. You're going to get better at coaching. It's really going to pour back into your podcast, and it's going to allow you to have more impact, and it's going to allow you to be better. When it comes to podcasting, there's 3 things you need to practice. You need to practice mastery. So becoming a better podcaster, more valuable, better speaker, better guest, mastering the craft of podcasting. The second one is impact. When you master something at a deeper level, you can impact people at a deeper level and you can impact more people. And the last one is profitability. When you master something and you become really, really good at it, you start to impact a large number of humans, then you have the opportunity to profit at a higher rate. But it starts with mastery. So you being on the phone with your potential clients, being on the phone with your listeners is going to be of value to you. I promise it is worth it. And that's why I offer free calls. And I will most likely, I can't promise this, but I will most likely offer free calls on this podcast. Not forever, but it's going to be a long time because they're valuable. There's no reason for me not to do them. Does everybody become a client? No, right? Have I gotten clients on the free call? Yeah. Recently, somebody said, what does it take to work with you? I told them and they said, cool, let's do it. Send me an invoice. Awesome. There's other people who I've never even sent our packages to because I didn't think it was in their best interests. So I am definitely practicing this and I think you should too. I think it's a valuable use of your time. Let's see. Podcast Growth Nation, next episode. So next week for episode number 19, the truth about podcast growth. I think there's a lot of us that are comparing ourselves to other podcasts that aren't really winning at the level we think they are. And I know that at a deep level because I've seen the behind the scenes of many of these podcasters, and a lot of their numbers are inflated. They're not making the money you think they are. They don't have the downloads you think they do. And a lot of what they say isn't true. So we're going to talk about that. I want to make sure that we're leaning into the truth as much as humanly possible. And I don't want you to be disheartened because you're basing your results and your progress off of somebody else's fake results and fake progress. As always, if you want to do a free call, please reach out. I will have my link in the show notes. And again, like I said in this episode, that is exactly why I do it. It helps me understand who's listening. It helps me understand what my listeners are going through. It helps me add value. Then I can talk about the problems that they're having on the show. And hey, if you become a client, cool. If not, no worries. I just want to add value. That's my ultimate goal. If it's not a win-win, it's a loss. Podcast Growth Nation, thank you. Please tune in next week for episode number 19. And as always, keep on podcasting. Talk to you soon.